morning, everybody, and welcome back to Money in the Law, My FM 101.3, summer edition, with your host, Jay Marsden. He's from the Marsden Law Group. I'm John Drohan from Main Effort Financial. Tom Harmon represents the Holliston Hub, HCAT, as he is our video and executive TV producer, and we are here at My FM 101.3 giving you Money in the Law.
Look at you. Wow, man.
It's almost like
that caffeine is kicking in. That coffee is kicking in.
Well, yeah, today's kind of a coffee day because Starbucks, not a sponsor,
could be
part of it. Could very well be. Is here.
Howard.
Yep, we have
Contact us.
We have coffee on the set today because we were on time.
We were actually very on time.
Both of us were on time today, which was. It's because we carpooled today. Again, part of, kind of what we're doing, trying to, doing our one thing. Our one thing today was carpooling to come to the studio.
Well, let me explain what we're carpooling. We're carpooling because my car, not as cool as a pool. My car is in the shop today because for reasons that remain, I figured out why, like YouTubed it, but I'm not going to fix it. But my heat is permanently on in the car.
All right, so can we give a little background about this car? Because this isn't like an ordinary car.
No, but my heat was permanently on, and when it was April, I didn't care. Now it's July. This is a little warm.
This car is toasty.
This is a little warm. So that's why we're carpooling.
All right, so, and the reason that Jay's car, the heat is on in his car, it's not because his 2017 Audi is acting up on him. No, it's not that. It's because his 1984 Marriott Marquis, which is, of course, the car that he inherited from his wonderful dad, that was his dad's car, and who Jay, will drive that car until who knows?
Until something happens. I don't know. Probably until they put me in the ground.
Until the heat gets fixed. We'll start that, which is happening today. Yeah. But that car, this is why he's having this issue. Because normally this doesn't happen with cars that were made within the last 10 to 15 years. Yeah, the heat's it's just stuck on. Why is that?
I believe when I was talking to the mechanic, he said something like, "It's going to take me a little bit of time to get the replacement piece." I'm not sure they make the replacement.
Yeah, no kidding. I have to make it myself.
Okay, are we machining this right in the back of the
it's one of those
garage? So.
Pretty soon you're going to have one of those antique, right?
Yeah, the antique plate on that puppy. Yeah.
I've always had like kind of this thing for like the ant, because all I want, I had when I was in high school, there was one for sale that was. I want to say it was maybe $3,000, which
candy
of course.
Apple Red Grand Marquis?
No. But when I think of antique cars and whenever I see them, is the VW microbus.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Right, and there was one for $3,000, and I went to my dad and I'm like, "What do you think?" And he's like, "You're not even allowed to drive those things over the George Washington Bridge." No way.
I wanted it,
and it was $3,000, right? Which is
a Corvette.
You wanted a Corvette? Oh, I'd take a Corvette right now.
Yep, wanted a Corvette. Yep. I had a choice: Corvette or UMass. I chose UMass. I don't make a lot of great decisions. That was one of them.
Well, that was a pretty responsible decision, right? Because then you can only imagine what would have come from the choosing, curtain B behind, when you're on the prices, right? I'll take the Corvette instead of the college education.
A good buddy of mine at the time, who was, somewhat years older than me, I worked for him in the construction trade. He says to me, I was telling him about the whole dilemma, the whole moral dilemma.
What should I do?
And he goes, "I'll tell you what you should do." And I go, "What should I do?" And he goes, "You should buy that Corvette." He says, "and you should drive it to Key West, Florida." That's what he said to me. Yeah. And I said, that sounds like a great idea.
You're trying to shoot holes in that plan, and you're having trouble.
I'm struggling. And I said, "That sounds like a great." He goes, "You can do both. Both can." I said, "I'm not sure I do both. I'm not sure." I said, not sure I'm gonna get the Corvette and go to UMass."
Because back then, people didn't say like you can always go to college. No, people didn't say that. Like, well, you can always go to college later on. No one ever. Nope. No one. It was either you're going to college or you're going to work, and then once you go to work, that's it.
Yeah, doors closed. Doors closed. That's right.
The doors closed behind you.
Yep, that's right.
It's like the garage door.
It's the Bruce Springsteen story. He says even into his career when he was clearly successful and clearly had figured out this rock and roll thing. And he would go on stage and he had a couple of songs that were specific to that. And he would say, "Even to this day, my mother will say to me, it's not too late. You can still go back to college." And he's like, "Ma, forget it. Like, it's done. Rock and roll, baby. It's all good."
Not only rock and roll, I have a responsibility. I am a cornerstone of rock and roll history.
I'm kind of becoming an icon. I'm not sure you noticed, but I'm writing some pretty good stuff. Right, it's
It was funny. I don't know if we talked about this on the show, but that when you talk about Springsteen and in the beginning of the Netflix or in his Broadway show where he was saying, he's like, all of the songs that he goes,
Yes.
I've never done that. I've never worked in a factory. I've never worked on a farm. I've never. And he was saying, I forget the song. He goes. When I wrote that song, I had my driver. It was the driving song. I've had my driver's license for like 2 weeks, like as if I'm drag racing, in the streets of Asbury Park. And he goes, the only time I've ever worked 5 days in a week is right now.
Yeah.
And he's like, and I don't like it. Yeah. He goes,
this is the only real job I've ever had.
Yeah, and he's like, and that's my magic trick is that I can, that I've connected with all this. So when you talk about Bruce Springsteen, like he has such a responsibility because in his artistry, that's his job. His job is to kind of talk about all this stuff, whether he's done it or not. But his job is
his observations. Those are his observations as a songwriter, right, or as a lyricist, or as a whatever it is. Yeah.
He doesn't. You don't have time to go to college. You need to get in the studio and release another album.
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
No. It would be selfish for you to go to college.
Yeah, you'd be robbing the world.
Yeah,
you'd be depriving the world of your greatness. Right.
Right.
So I went to college and I deprived the world of my greatness.
You deprived the world of you driving a Corvette, right? Coming out of Magoo's.
Going from Boston. Boston to, that's right. Things may have turned out differently.
Saved lives.
Things may have turned out differently.
Yeah.
That's right. That's exactly right. So.
So what's new? We haven't had a show in a while. You're doing okay,
I think everyone's
Tommy?
been taking time off. Tommy,
Have you been playing some golf, please, I hope?
I have.
Okay. All right. How you hitting him? All right, so Tom's hitting them good, and
is there any other answer to that question from Tommy?
Well, I mean, he's kind of a prodigy.
He knows his way around.
And you've been playing
I've been
your
working
league,
away,
right?
chipping away Tuesday nights. Yep, Bible study. Yep.
So, my Tuesday night Bible study with 3 clubs. And
that's right. That's
three clubs and 3 martinis, and here I am.
Yep. How about you? Spend some time in the Cape?
I did. I spent some time. We had our big 4th of July kind of reunion. We have 2 family reunions every year that are kind of automatic. One is 4th of July, one is Thanksgiving. So 4th of July is the big one. That's at Mom's house. We had a couple. And it was every year it's kind of different. This year was real different because my Phoebe is up there and she's up there for the summer, living with Grandma with 2 of her buddies from school.
Yep.
And then Chloe came up with one of her buddies. So we had 5 20-something-year-old college kids along with the rest of the crew. So it was. Needless to say, there was never a dull moment. You were Faith. You were there. The weather was okay. Not great.
It was hot. Yep.
But one of the and in my probably to my own detriment. One of the things I was getting everybody pumped up for is we're going to have a sing along, right? So as many of you know, because we're now musicians, Jay and I, Jay a little sooner than I am. But I was getting ready for this, so I'm practicing, and all I wanted to do was sing American Pie on the 4th of July.
Straight through.
I just wanted to. And with everybody, right? And I had this vision of it happening on the beach.
People circling up around the fire. So the fire.
So we're in our fire, but then that's the thing. Like you can get the beach fire, and you get a pass, and there's like 6 of them, right? So there's other groups.
So you're hoping everyone would kind of gather around yours, and it would turn into a Coca-Cola commercial.
It was going to turn into better than a Coca-Cola. Like you couldn't have made it up, and I was practicing, and I was ready. I mean, not like it sounded good, but I knew the words, right?
I've been party to your level of enthusiasm for a project like this, so I can see where this would have gone.
And it just didn't happen.
Crashed and burned.
It didn't happen. And well, we did do a sing, but it just didn't happen at the beach. And again, because there's just too much other stuff to do.
Too much going on.
There's too much to do. And part of it is I also wanted to do, because I have a new grill, I wanted to do the beach grilling and the sing-along, right?
Yeah.
So everybody's kind of watching me like...
So you get the guitar on your back, you're flipping burgers,
my grill,
flipping burgers with the guitar. Yep.
And everybody's like, and I cook slow anyway.
Sure.
So like, oh, you're in charge of cooking tonight. Great. So we're not going to eat until like 9:30. It's pitch black, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And then now we're gonna do a sing along, and everybody's like, can I just please go home? It's about to rain.
Yep.
So
so let me just give you. So as a budding acoustic guitar player, okay. you're going to get two responses to you breaking out the guitar. Some are going to be shouts of sheer joy and excitement,
like rapture.
and the other one is going to be it's going to clear the room,
Yeah.
right? And there's no middle of the road,
No.
right? And the people who hang around and love it are going to be like totally into it, and everybody else is going to be like, yeah, I'll see you outside.
Can you please-
just
yeah.
finish my drink in time to go grab another one? This guy, right? That could be an absolute deal killer. I've cleared a few rooms in my time with that. I'm just letting you know right now.
Unfortunately, I feel like my wife is in party number B, right? Like
so's mine. So's mine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like she's like, I'm like, hey, what do you think? Sing along, and she's like, no.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to do that, and
Yeah.
and she goes, and neither does everybody else. And I go, that's not true.
Yeah.
That's not true.
No,
Phoebe
you're wrong.
wants to.
You're wrong.
Phoebe wants to.
People want to hear me.
Yeah.
People want to hear me. I sound great in my own head. People want to hear me.
Yeah.
Yep.
The one saving grace, because we said, all right, well, we'll do the sing along back at the house, right?
Sure.
So we're at the house and we're like, all right, and then my daughter's friend Simone, who she goes, oh, can I try it? And I'm like, oh, do you play guitar? She goes, and Chloe's like, yeah, she's a music major. She's been
At
playing guitar.
Juilliard,
She's been playing her guitar her whole life. So she picks up and she's like, what song do you want to play? She goes, I'll play any song. And we're like, play, Free Fallin'. Right?
And that's as the guy who like started the party. That's like you just hang your head
Yeah.
and you just walk
You
away.
just
and you're
hand her
like,
your guitar
yeah,
and say,
yeah, and
thank
just say,
yeah.
speak well of me when I'm gone.
Yeah,
That's it, right?
that's
Yeah.
right. It's
He was
like-
always quick to turn it over to the people who knew what to do.
And all of a sudden, the people who left the room
Come
first,
back
they
to
came
them.
back
Yes,
like,
they
oh,
do.
she,
Yep.
wow, she sounds great.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And you
Yeah.
say, why am I not getting that
Yeah.
response?
No.
Oh yeah, I've been partying.
Someday,
Yep, yep.
someday.
is
I'm
right.
not quitting.
Someday is right.
I'm not
Yep.
quitting.
That's right.
So
That's
that
right.
was between that and like a couple of big dinners, beach party. That was that's pretty much what we do. The same thing. I mean,
That's
are
it.
you the same way?
Same way.
Yeah.
Cook out, grill, go out, wash, rinse, repeat.
Yeah.
Yep. So same thing, same things. It was crazy. I mean, you never do expect 4th of July. Beaches are packed, parking lots are packed. You got to kind of move it around a little bit. These are all obviously challenges that you got to
Oh, no.
got to suffer through. But it's there's a lot going on. It's a busy weekend on the Cape when you try to make a phone call on your cell phone, and the network is just literally like we're full. It's like
Not enough, yeah.
when someone leaves, we'll let you in. That's
Yeah.
kind of how it works. Like,
Right.
we tried to get an Uber to go home one night, and they're like, "Forget it." I'm like, "I think we're walking
There's
back
Ubers
to. I think
in
we're
Cape Cod.
walking back to Yarmouth, right?" It was just crazy. So that's what happens. That's what happens.
All right, so that's good.
So what do you want to talk about? I got a couple things if you want to chit chat. We can cover some stuff.
I mean, I'd like to talk about how we got here. We can talk about that after the break. But yeah, what's on your mind?
Well, because it's summertime, and we're doing a presentation on this exact topic on the Cape in August. We want to talk about protecting the beach house. How do you figure out what you want to do so that these types of family engagements that you just talked about
Stay fun.
celebrating right there can keep on keeping
Yeah,
on.
they stay
That's-
fun.
That's
All
what
right,
we talk about.
I love that. All right, how to protect the beach house. I mean, we're not talking about termites or anything
Nope.
like that. We're not
Nope.
talking about
Nope. We're just
flood,
talking about how to
flood
keep it.
damage.
Yep. We're just
anything
talking about
like
how to
that.
keep it. How to
We're
keep
not
it.
talking
Yep.
about having to replace a septic or anything like that. We're
The
talking
person
about
who gets the house might have to do that, but we're not going to talk about that today. No. Nobody
Okay.
wants to worry about that.
All right.
So we'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll figure it out.
All right, so we'll take. We're going to talk about how to protect your second home if it's on the beach.
Could be a lake. Could be a lake, right?
Could be
Could be
lakefront.
the woods.
Could be
Could
it
be the
could be
woods.
in the middle. It could be right. It could be a
Could be right
mountain.
here- could be right here
a
in
mountain
Milford.
cabin.
Yep.
Or
That's
it could
right.
be a Milford cabin.
That's right.
All right, we'll talk about that, and we'll also talk about kind of how Jay got here to work today, and it was a little bit of a mix-up, but
Sure.
we cleared it up, and this is why we have Starbucks. So don't go away. Stay on the edge of your seat unless you're driving. Then you want to sit like comfortably, normally, and safely.
Better feedback.
And we'll be right back.
And we're back. My FM 101.3. Jay Marsden with the Marsden Law Group. John Drow here in Maine for Financial. Tom on the bag today. And we're here. It's July. And we're talking about beach houses. We're talking about vacation houses. And today's topic dovetailing very nicely with the in-person presentation on this exact topic that we will be doing on the beach down in Hyannis in August. And stay tuned for more details on that event. But we're talking about how to keep and or protect the vacation house.
I like how you have to say it's in person, right? 'Cause
Oh, it's in
now-
person.
Now you have to say it.
Live
right?
and in
Now-
living color.
now it's a
Live
thing. You
and in
don't
living
it's not-
color,
no,
right?
You're not tuned in. It's on a Zoom presentation.
Yep,
It's
yep.
in person.
For those of you who want to come to the He Does Have a Face for Radio, come on down. You'll find us. Yep, you'll find
Yep.
us. Yep. So first thing we always talk about when we're talking about protecting the vacation property, again, we're going to refer to it as beach house today, but that's the same idea. First of all, you really want to be open and honest about what's the plan here. If this
What do you
is-
want to see happen, right?
Yeah. If this is mom and dad, you got to ask everybody, right? Look, we've had this place down here on the water, on the lake, whatever it is, and we've had a ton of great memories here. I'm assuming that you guys want to keep this party going, right? And find out from everybody, do they feel that way, right? Because you're going to get a host of potentially different answers, right? You're going to get some part of your crew says, yeah, we love it, it's been great. The other part of your crew says, I don't really love the beach, I don't really love the sand, it's just not my bag. Other people might say in your team or in your family, somebody might say, yeah, we'd love coming down here as long as you guys are picking up the tab. It's been great, but we financially, we're not sure we can swing this. We need to figure this out, right? I mean, those are the considerations. People are going to like it. People are not going to like it. Some people are going to want to do it, but they're only going to want to do it if somebody else is subsidizing it. I mean, not for good, not for bad. That's reality.
So for clarification, the picture we're talking about is that it's a vacation property, or are people living there year round?
I mean,
it could be both.
It
right?
could be both. Yeah. Sometimes they transition to both. Right. Like it was a second property for a bunch of years, and then mom and dad kind of moved into it full time, sold their house, off Cape, if you will, and decided that this is our forever home. Right. We don't need two houses anymore. So
that's one scenario, right? Is when the people who own the house actually live there,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So and we're talking about kind of people who are older and now have adult children, right?
Mm-hmm.
Adult children and the family.
And usually adult children with families.
And
Yep.
adult children who have children of their own, and this is kind of the place to go. So this is our situation. We're very fortunate. My mother owns a place and she lives in Cape Cod, and that's kind of where we go on 4th of July. It's where we go on things. That's her place.
Well, and this is what happens. It becomes a family gathering place for a whole host of reasons. Not that your primary residence doesn't, but this obviously has a different feel to it.
Let's talk about reality. The fact of the matter is, where do you want to go on 4th of July? Do you want to go to Holliston, or do you want to go to Cape Cod? Right.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, and that's okay, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. People want, especially in these vacation, there are vacation places for a reason.
That's right. That's right.
So, if it's on a lake, if I'm on Lake Winnipesaukee, or if I'm on Lake George, or if I'm in the White Mountains, and maybe we have that place because there's things to do there.
Right. We got jet skis, we got paddle boards, we got kayaks, we got a boat. Everyone's going out doing their thing.
Or we're going skiing, right?
Yep.
We're a ski family, So it's like that's the reason why they're there, and that's the reason why people are more likely to gather there than they are to gather in some other random place like in Rochester or somewhere.
That's
like
right.
that.
That's exactly right. So that's the first thing you want to find out. You want to kind of gauge everybody's temperature in the room as to sort of what people's interest is going to look like for this project in the future, right? Because you want to know, right? If there's 3 kids in the family and 2 of them could care less, well, that's a clear pathway of what might happen here, and you might decide to handle things differently. You might do a different estate planning distribution based on the fact that some person really wants the Cape House. But so you want to get some clarity around what's supposed to happen, right? Or what is everybody? And by the way, for mom and dads who listen to this, I will tell you right now, you might not even know this. A conversation about this is happening outside of your earshot, right? Like if you're not around.
People have talked about it. This isn't like the first time it's come up.
Nope, the kids aren't shocked to hear this. They're having this conversation. Hey, if something ever happened to mom and dad, what do you think we would? What do you think they would do? What do you think we would do with the blank house, right? Cape House, Beach House, Lake House. What would we do? This conversation is happening. I promise you. This conversation is happening.
Okay, so as you said, the first thing is, okay, what's the plan? So let's make the assumption that the plan is that mom and dad or mom or whomever is living there, they want to keep the house and they want to continue this. They want to leave it as a legacy.
Correct.
In order to for this next generation, so they have the ability to kind of keep doing what they're doing, right?
Right. So that's the thing. So are we leaving a physical space? Are we leaving a house? Or does everybody say, I could care less, I'm taking the money.
Yeah, I'd
right?
rather have the money.
Then let's understand that right now, because that factors into kind of where you go from there, right? And so if the answer is, well, everybody wants it, okay, so then we have to start thinking about what the rules are going to look like, because that's what's going to happen, right? So because if everybody wants the house, then you have to start being very realistic about, well, I know everybody wants the house. Does everybody have the capability to be a co-owner of the house?
So defining that and clearly understanding what wanting the house entails, that's a big thing. So let me ask you this, attorney.
Sure.
So what's the first thing I'm doing at this point? Like if mom and dad have this house, and is there any legal documentation that I might want to do in order, like with the first things first, like whether everybody wants it or not? What's the probably the one thing that I'm going to do in order to make sure that the house can avoid certain
great point. So we would love to see at this stage of the game, just as part of this discussion, we would love to see the house living in inside someone's revocable trust, right? First and foremost,
nothing less a revocable trust,
right? A revocable trust, just to start the party, just so we know if something ever happens, we don't have to worry about the probate court. We can figure out what we're going to do. The house can go where the house is going to go. That's really first and foremost. Let's get the house into a revocable trust to have this discussion.
Yeah. So the great thing, just to review about, and again, just kind of speaking and I'm not an attorney.
Almost an attorney. Yeah.
I just stand next to one on TV. Is that the great thing about the revocable trust? And Jay just said it avoids probate. So if the decision is we got to sell the house or we want to sell the house, that happens a whole lot faster than if it has to wait and go through probate.
That's right.
So it gives you like the flexibility to be able to, all right, we can make decisions as to what we're going to do, or if someone whatever the situation is going to derive.
You have control. You have control and the ability to implement the plan, right?
Yeah.
Whatever the plan looks like, right? That's the story, right? And then part two of it is, okay, now let's figure it out. We get a bunch of kids that are all somewhat interested in this house, right? Let's think about it that way. So now you got to be realistic.
So what are some situations that you've seen?
Well, you get a couple things. It's usually a combination of this is how it usually works out. These are the personalities who kind of show up to a situation like this. There's somebody who really wants the house, right? Takes nothing but joy and pleasure from being at the house, loves the house, maybe has been helpful in sort of managing and maintaining the upkeep, and kind of almost already feels like it's theirs, right? Which it's not. Remind to that person, it's not yours yet. I know you've helped put a couple of shingles on the on the roof after the storm, but that doesn't mean you get the house. But I get it, right? Just because you do that, don't forget they're your parents, right? It's called love, right? We're going to do that, right? So that helping them out doesn't give you any more or less of a bigger seat at the table, and I know they always think it does. And then there's people who really like the house, really want the house, really are engaged by using the house, but from a financial perspective, carrying costs on a property like that may or may not work out.
Or
right?
from a logistical, they may live on the other side of the country, right?
That was my third one.
Okay,
Jumping
sorry.
ahead. You're reading ahead, right?
All right. So financially, right? So
there's a financial component. Can I afford the house? Can I not afford the house? And then the third piece is somebody might say, I love the house, but I live on the West Coast. I love the house. I don't live in the country. I don't care about the house, and I live on the West Coast. It's just geographically not within my striking distance. And now that person may say, I may decide to move back to the East Coast, and I might have an interest in it. And so you got to kind of figure out, like, well, back to the first two issues. Do they have the ability to carry it? Do they have the ability? Whatever. You're organizing, just scheduling around how this whole thing's going to work out. So that's usually who shows up, right? Somebody who wants it but maybe can't afford it, and then somebody who may or may not want it. It's kind of a coin toss, and they don't really have any, real thoughts either way, right? And that's up to them, right? So that's the conversation. You got to kind of figure that out with the players and get a sense of what that means. Now, this is important because this is where real dysfunction kind of starts to bubble up, right?
Oh yeah.
Because again, remember, while you're writing the checks, nobody understands what owning additional property or the responsibilities of owning additional property look like.
Well, think about it. What are they, right? First of all, I got to pay the taxes, right?
Well, it could be a mortgage, first of all.
First time, if there's a loan, I got to pay the loan.
That's right.
And so, we're not talking about this. This isn't a house that's been inherited. This is a house where the people, it's still the parents are still there. Like
the parents are paying all the bills. You come down, you buy mom and dad dinner, right? Because you spend 5 days at the house and you think you're a hero. Okay, maybe you are. That's great. That's all mom and dad want.
Yep.
Once mom and dad aren't on the scene, now it's not come down and buy each other dinner and call it a day. To your point, It's either a mortgage payment, it's property taxes, it's insurance, it's maintenance, it's upkeep, it's gas, it's electric. It's somebody's got to come out and fix stuff. Somebody's got to take care of stuff. It's a commitment. It's a huge commitment.
A
And
huge
all those
financial commitment.
That's right. That's right. So you really need to think of, and some of this may depend on where you're at in life. You know, you get 3 or 4 kids in the family, and somebody's kids are long since graduated college. Somebody didn't have any kids, so they have no college bills. Somebody's in the throes of 2 or 3 tuition payments and says, look, if I could get out from under these tuition payments, I'd be all in on the house, but I can't until, junior gets through senior year.
I can't afford the $5,000 to $7,000 a year, or whatever my piece of this, right? I just can't afford it.
I can't afford it ever, or I can't afford it right now.
Or I can't afford, or I can't justify it. I can't say, look, I live in Oregon. I'm come to this place once a year.
Right.
I can't subsidize this and subsidize the ongoing beach happiness just because I just can't afford it.
Right. That's right. That's right. And so that reality needs to be addressed, right? And and remember, if you've got a bunch of family members, and depending on what the other aspects of your estate look like, everybody could be getting a house and they could be getting some money, right? So somebody might say, well, I don't have the money to buy the house. Well, but if something happens to mom and dad, you will have the money to buy the house because mom's sitting on a big IRA or dad's sitting on a big IRA, or there's other assets that could hit the table. So you might have to choose, right? If something happens to mom and dad, would I be able to buy a house? Is there some financial horse trading that's going to go on with some of our inheritances? Yes, no, maybe. That could happen, right? Those things could happen. This is part of the discussion. And remember, this discussion assumes that you want to engage in this topic, right? If your answer is, I don't care, let them figure it out after I'm gone, then don't even bother broaching the subject. But this is where it goes.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and this is where it can get really complicated, right? So we'll use us as an example, right? So there's I have 4 siblings, right? And let's say that the house is worth $1 million for easy math, right? Mm-hmm. So if the answer is like, okay, well, all 4 kids are going to share in the house, and everybody wants to keep doing what we're doing, right?
Yep.
Keep doing what we're doing. We say, okay, this is what we want to keep going, and we want to, and everybody at this point right now can afford whatever the cost is going to be. So then that's like, okay, great. Then that's an easy scenario. Now, if like you said, well, wait a minute, somebody. I really need the money to help pay for my 2 kids that are in college, then you're like, well, okay, so then that means you're saying, look, I have a 25% stake in this. I can say I don't want, as much as I love seeing you guys and doing this, for me financially, for my family, it's going to be way better if I take the money
and run. Yeah.
And that's a big deal, right? Because now you're like 1 out of 4 who wants to kind of get out from under this.
Sure.
And the question is how do you do it? And you said, well, one of the potential things is if there's other money involved. So you could kind of use that other money to sort of buy that one sibling out, right? Now, here's the thing. Remember, that sounds good, right? But remember, if the house is worth $1 million today, and you say, okay, well, here's $250,000. See you later, and you're like, okay, I'm good with that. And then 3 years later, that house is worth $3 million because of, and then like, well, wait a minute, I only got $2 then there's, and again, it's all this, because these are families we're talking about, right?
Oh,
yeah. So all these family dynamics, there could be some significant, static or bad blood that kind of evolves from these conversations.
That situation that you just mentioned, where if you have 4 people at the table and everybody, it's someone, again, one of you is doing the math, right? Somebody's sitting home at night doing math and saying, well, if we all end up owning the house together, we're all going to be in for $250,000, and if we get it and there's no mortgage and the carrying cost of this, I think it works, right? And then the minute one of the family members come in and says, I'm not sure I want to be in this deal, immediately it throws all the math out of balance. And so you may have people who want to be in the deal, and you may have people who can afford to be in the deal, but they can only afford to be in the deal if the deal's split 4 ways.
Yep.
The minute you split the deal 3 ways,
too, right?
It tips the apple cart, and they say, look, we can't do it with 3 of us, but we can definitely do it with 4 of us. Mm-hmm. And if you're the one that says, well, for a whole host of reasons, I don't want to be in this deal, I'm telling you right now, that will be a source of contention,
Forever.
or that will be a friction point for the rest of your
That
lives.
could be a game changer, right?
We wanted to keep the Cape House that Mom and Dad worked so hard for, and we didn't keep it because you didn't want to be
now
in
we
it.
don't see each other on 4th of July. Now
That's
we don't
right.
see each other on Thanksgiving. Now we don't. And so that's so there's that part of it as well, right? There's that, and that's not insignificant.
Oh, not at all.
No.
You need to.
There's value in that. It may not be a monetary value.
Right, but that's right. This peace of mind, right? This family tranquility as part of that conversation, so that everybody understands what they're getting into. And by the way, people that are in your circle here, in the family circle, some people are very uncomfortable coming forward and saying, we would love to be in the Cape House, but we can't afford it, right? I mean, they're just, some people, for all the obvious reasons, just have real reservations about kind of putting that out there and saying, look, we can't afford it.
Because they don't want to be the one who's they don't want to be like the redheaded stepchild.
Well, they don't want to be the stepchild. They might be embarrassed by it, for not that they should be, but they're just uncomfortable coming to everybody and saying, look, things are pretty tight with the. They don't want to say that, right? For all the understandable reasons. So there's going to be, and if they try to get in there, you're going to create a problem where if they're in there and they can't financially afford it, and every time they write that check, it gets under their craw, and that's going to create it creates the same type of tensions that some of these things really create. And the other point that you mentioned is, and if somebody does get out, that's exactly what it has to be understood. Look, you're getting out, and I understand that, and you're being paid based on whatever it is today. Down the road, if this thing goes hockey stick and goes through the roof because of a whole host of reasons, you're walking away from this. You need to understand that, and you need to hear that, because we've had situations like that. We've had situations where people come in and say they bought out Mom and Dad, they bought out somebody, and then the property went through the roof. And then now the family's actually coming in and they're saying, you should be putting more money on the table. And we've had that scenario.
Yeah.
So you have to understand.
That has to be clearly articulated. That has to be like, all right, look, just so you know, here's for you who's walking away with with a big wad of cash, here's worst case scenario. Worst case scenario is this thing, like they find gold underneath this thing, and guess what? That property is now worth $10 million, and that's chump change what you just got.
And you don't share in that. You don't share. Now, they could find toxic waste.
Yeah.
And you don't share in that,
there
right?
You go.
You don't get the good, you don't get the bad, you're out, here's your number.
So you got to understand that, right?
Yep.
And that's kind of like just kind of a grown-up discussion. Like, all right, here's the deal. This is what happens. And just so you know, let's all say it out loud. And that's why having like a third party, like a disinterested third party, like a lawyer, to come in and be like, all right, just so we're clear on this, are you, and one more time, do you understand what you're doing? Yes, I do. And then they go.
Yep. Now, by the way, take a break.
Yeah, I was going to say, take a quick break. We'll come back, talk more on this, because we talk about like the different, like kind of the different potential scenarios. One of the scenarios that I'm very interested in is so one person doesn't necessarily want it, but everybody else does. Or what if one person actually lives in the house?
Bingo. Great.
And then
great point.
and that enters a whole, but they don't own it, but they just live there.
Yep.
So
all right, we'll talk about that.
We'll take a quick break and we'll talk about that when we get back. All right, don't go away. Money in the Law, My FM 101.3.
Stay right here in the beach house with
and
us.
the Holliston Hub. We're hanging out in the beach house. It's hot in here. Yeah.
It is hot. Open a window.
Because it's the beach.
And you're back. My FM 101.3. Jay Marsden with the Marsden Law Group.
He's on them.
Jay Marsden.
He's had some coffee.
John Drohan, Manufacturer Financial, and Tommy on the bag. Right before the break, keeping with our conversation today, we're talking about the beach house, and we're talking about transitioning the beach house, and how do we make sure it works, and how do we make sure you don't kill each other, and what that whole process looks like. And it's funny, right before the break, we were joking around about how hot it was in here, and you were talking about air conditioning, and I'm laughing because if you're talking about collectively owning the beach house together because you and your sisters or you and your brothers or you and your brothers and sisters think this is going to be great, that's what's going to happen, right? Yeah. Someone's going to come rolling into the house and being like, I am on Cape Cod. I'm here for the heat and the hot sun and the sand, and let's get these windows open. Yeah. And then your sister's going to roll in, and she's like, I hate the heat. I hate the sun. Let's close those windows. Let's fire up the central AC. Right? And then someone's going to say, we don't have central AC. And then somebody else is going to go, we're putting it in. How much is it going to cost? I don't want to put central AC in. Yeah. Let's put in 6 window units. It doesn't really matter, right? These are considerations. When you're owning property with people, there's those type of considerations. There's repair considerations. There's maintenance and upkeep considerations. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And then there's design considerations. I want granite. You want marble. I want a stainless steel sink. You want a copper sink, right? These are the things that are going to come up. They don't sound like a big deal, right? Everybody makes fun of me when I get to that like level of detail.
Yeah.
But this is where people are going to say, you know, we got into this thing.
Yeah.
I'm into this thing for 250 grand. I can't decide anything by myself because I got to take a vote with everybody. And you know what? I think I want to get out. And then everybody goes, what do you mean you want to get out? Why don't you want to get out? Because now why am I getting out? I'm getting out because I don't like your decisions.
Yeah.
And I'm unhappy with them. And then it creates another friction point, right?
So let's talk. Let's address that. Let's talk about the getting out, right?
Yep.
So if somebody wants to get out, how do they do it?
Well, ideally, we come up with a formula or a strategy. And I tell this to all my clients going into this situation. I said, this is like you're effectively getting into business.
Yeah, there's no other money, right? Let's say there's no other money or anything.
Nope. So what we usually do is we kind of put like an annual get out of jail clause, right? Like we say, look, the 1 year anniversary of the purchase of the home, right? Somebody within 30 days of that day basically puts in writing, I would like to be bought out of the house. And then we got to figure out, you know, what the formula is for coming up with a valuation. But it's kind of like a, you know, in the trust world, we call it a crummy notice. You know, in a business arrangement, it's sort of like just me, get me out of this relationship. And so we'll put a formula in place that gives so that everybody knows coming in, at one point during the year, you could have a 1/3 or 1/4 or half the house could be put to you, and you need to understand what that looks like. And sometimes those clauses will say something like, you know, I can offer to buy you out, and if you reject my offer, you have to immediately buy me out at that number to keep everybody from lowballing each other. Because what you're trying to avoid is, you're trying to avoid the scenario where somebody stops showing up and they tell all their friends, I've been trying to get out of this vacation house arrangement with my family for 10 years, and I make them an offer every year.
You want to call one of those timeshare places, right?
Yep.
How do you get out of your timeshare?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I make them
call Tommy Harmon.
I make them a fair offer every year, and they reject it and throw it in my face. What do you offer them? I tell them I want $5 million. All right, well, that's a little bit ridiculous. What do they counteroffer with? $2, right? I mean, this is where you get the extremes, right? So
That's pretty extreme.
We've put some of these kind of guardrails in.
We're not close to the middle.
No. So we put some guardrails in to kind of say, look, you want to get out? Everybody gets once a year. They get a kind of a buyout period where they can get out, and everybody has to understand that.
Yeah, and most importantly, at that point, it's the fair market value, right?
Correct.
And you got to deal. In any of these situations, in any of these real estate situations, you have to deal in fair market value. Even if one person, right? Even if one, let's say you have 4 people and only one person, and they have the means, and they're like, we're going to buy you all out. And it's not like I'm going to get a deal from mom and dad on this house. It's not like I'm going to say, well, yeah, mom, I'm going to buy your house from you because I can afford to do it. I'm not lowballing him because that's not fair to your siblings, right? You can't do that. So everything has to deal in fair market value. So
the best thing you can do is you want to treat this like a deal between strangers.
Yeah,
that's what you want. I know it's family. I know it's family, and everyone wants to think it's not going to work that way.
If you're buying a house, right, from somebody else,
you treat it like you're all strangers. It's a business deal. That's what it is. It's a business transaction.
So when you do this 1 year kind of eval, and do you do this every year? Is that like kind of wired into where you can do it?
Well, the eval isn't wired in, but it's like the get out of jail period, right? Like, you know, so if you decide at some point during the year, you said, look, you know what? This isn't really working out for us, right?
Yeah.
You know, we're paying a lot of money. We're not using it like we thought we were going to use it. We don't like the beach anymore. We want to go to the lake. We want to get our money out. We want to get out of this deal. So the anniversary comes up, right?
So what value? So what's the value that you assign?
It's fair market value. We would have to decide what constitutes a fair market value. Is it a broker's evaluation? Are we okay with broker comps? Mm-hmm. Do we need to actually pay for an appraisal? You know, how do we want to do this? And you could certainly say, the person who wants to get out is responsible for paying the appraisal, right? That's I want to get out. I want to get my money.
And then you have a disinterested third party that comes and says your house is worth $1.1 million, and they're like, okay, that's the deal, right?
Yep.
It may even be somebody, you know, the people who don't want to get out or collectively, or somebody else says, or you get two. You get two appraisals. Say, all right, so just so we're cool about
Right.
this.
If we don't agree with the appraisal, because you might agree with it, you might say that's probably about right.
Yep.
Look, this doesn't assume that there's always fighting, right? Somebody would say, you know what? We understand this is your get out period. You want to get out, that's fine. You got an appraisal, it's 1.1. We're not going to fight with that. We think that's probably right. Is it 1.15? Is it, whatever.
Who knows, right? It
this
all
works.
depends if the wind's blowing.
Yep, we're all good. And so, okay, fine. And then you got to say, okay, now that means we have to get a mortgage. Does that mean, how are we going to get you out, right? And then the other people have to understand that at some point, they could be asked to pony up some dough. And so that goes back to this, like, if we're just doing this and we're just making it work, it could not work at some point. Here's what not making it work would look like. Everybody needs to understand that going in.
Yes.
Now, before the break, you mentioned, what if somebody's living in the house right now, you're saying, with mom and dad?
So we've had situations where the house is passed, right? So
Yep.
so the parents are no longer alive.
Yep.
And it's a beach house, and it's owned by 4 siblings. However, one of the siblings lives there.
Correct. So now, so they were living with mom and dad prior to that.
Yep.
So here's what you're going to hear. This is what we hear all the time. Okay, it's my house. I lived here. Without me, I'd be homeless.
I did all the work. I took care of mom and dad.
Yep.
I did all the maintenance. I put so much extra into the house, so much more than you guys did.
Absolutely right.
All that, and a lot of that is probably valid, right?
All of that may be true, but the question becomes, all of that may be true, but are we basically trying to kind of rearrange history in the sense that, was there a discussion that says, look, I will sacrifice my life, if you will, to move down here and take care of mom and dad so that they can live their lives out and be in the house that they wanted to be in, blah, 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 blah. And we all understand that? Okay. Ideally, when that conversation happens, there's this conversation that says,
right.
I just want to make sure that you understand, Billy, because you moved down here, you have the same seat at the table that all of us have if something happens to mom and dad. And let's find some way to memorialize that conversation, because you are 100% right. Mom and dad are going to pass, and Billy's going to show up, and he's going to say, I fixed the roof, I fixed the windows, I replaced the shutters, I did the walkway over, I shoveled, I took care of mom and dad at the same exact time, and this is my home, and I'm not leaving. And everybody's going to say, well, we're not really asking you to leave, but what we're asking you to do to recognize that the dynamic has dramatically changed. You are now a 1/4 owner of a house that, by the way, you didn't own any of before when mom and dad were alive.
Right. So there's got to be a way, and you know this better than I do. So there's got to be a way where, so if you're a 1/4 owner, but then let's say you move in and you live with mom and dad for 5 years, and you take care of them, and you do all that, and you let's say you have money, but you're not paying any rent, right? You're not paying you're not paying anything towards if there's a mortgage or anything, but you do some maintenance stuff, and then you can say, what's the value for you living with mom and dad, and maybe you did a lot for them. Maybe you took care of them, right? So you can bake that into the formula, and you could say, you know what? Maybe you don't. Maybe you own more than a quarter. Maybe you're more than a quarter, and kind of arrange those numbers a little differently.
Well, I think that arrangement needs to be figured out before we get there, and that could literally mean something like, well, you're going to keep track of this, right? Like, don't just show up after the funeral and tell us, I did a ton of work. Well, what's a ton of work?
Yeah.
I did a whole bunch of, we need to quantify that. Like, if you shovel the driveway once a winter, that's not a ton of work, right? If you re-shingled the entire back of the house because it was about to fall off and you did some real work, we'll give you that. But you need to understand, is this work, or is this just you helping out your parents because you're living in the house?
Or this you shoveling the driveway that you park your car in.
Yeah,
right.
That's right.
That's a different animal, right?
That's right.
So if I do all the work around here, well, you would have done it wherever you were living.
That's right.
So
and you lived here, and and your siblings are going to say, and you paid no rent while you were living down there.
You
so
didn't
you were
pay
saving
the
yourself
real estate taxes mom and dad did.
Yep.
Yeah.
You were saving yourself a pile of dough. So granted, you did some stuff. But to your point, you did exactly what you would have done if you were living in your own place, or you were, And
you said it. The way you get past this, the way this doesn't become an issue, is if you talk about it now, like right in the beginning. You say, okay, so look, you're moving in. Here's just so everybody understands, there's going to be cost. Now, if there's some significant, and we can figure that out, like let's label what is a significant cost. So if you pay to have all new windows put into the house, that upgrades the property.
Yeah,
If you,
and by the way, keep your receipt.
Yeah.
Like, don't tell me you paid a ton of money for windows, and when I ask you how much and where, and you can't come up with anything, that's a problem. And if you, hold on, you use mom and dad's money to put those windows in.
Yeah,
Oh, well.
that's a different animal.
Yeah, but I wrote the check. Right? That's not the same thing,
Yeah,
right? And here's the other thing that comes up with these living situations, too, is remember, you're living there. It's effectively your house. It feels like your house, right? Mom and dad probably aren't doing a lot, right? There's a lot of sitting around, there's a lot of law and order going on, right? So if something happens to mom and dad, now your siblings are coming down, and it's not your house anymore. I know it feels like your house, right? It's your blanket on the couch, right?
It's your room
That's
where
your
you lived
room
in,
where
yep.
all your posters, all your Van Halen posters are up there, your Loverboy posters are
you're
up there.
67
right?
years old and you have Van Halen posters.
That's right, right? So
Not that there's I don't have a problem.
I'm not-
I don't think that's. I mean,
I'm not opposed
right,
to it. I
right.
know.
I mean, if my wife said you can put up one poster in the right now, what would it be?
Samantha Fox.
Probably not.
But that's, I mean, think about it this way. Think about if somebody came into your house tomorrow and said to you, well, I'm a 1/4 owner of this house.
Yeah.
And guess what? I hate that dining room set.
Yeah.
I can't stand
Yeah,
that
yeah.
500-year-old living room set because you probably, it was mom and dad's house, so you probably weren't rocking the boat with a lot of things, right? But you have your space, right? You got your space,
Yeah.
right? Well, now you don't have your space anymore because it's not your house.
Yeah.
So this is going to create, I mean, talk about tension, right?
Yeah.
Not only do you not, now you're potentially homeless, which is what everybody's concern is, right? And your 1/4 interest of this house is maybe not going to be enough for you to leverage into your own place so you can tell everybody to take a flying leap and go do your own thing. So now, and you've made no provisions for that, right? To your point, you're 67 years old. Maybe you have worked, maybe you haven't worked. You're probably not a great mortgage candidate. There's a lot of financial factors.
Right.
that
So if
become a
you
real
can
problem.
buy everybody out at that point, because think about it, if you're one of the other siblings that don't live there, do you want to go? I mean, if your brother's living there, do you want that to be like your vacation home where you're going up for like 2 weeks in Cape Cod?
Well, it's not a vacation home. It's your brother's house that you co-own with him, and you want to come down in the summertime, and he has cut the lawn, he hasn't cut the lawn. He has filled the gas for the grill, he hasn't filled the gas for the grill. He hasn't cleaned the grill. I mean, you are now coming into somebody else's house because he's there all the time.
But you may be like, look, I don't want that.
That's right.
Or you can have that, or you can have $250,000. What are you going to take? And you're going to be like, I'm probably going to take the 250. So, when you talked about kind of, if one person wants out or all of them want out.
Yeah.
There's the first is kind of the right of first refusal, right? So if one or two or three people want out, right, then it's like, okay, can the remainder buy them out?
That's right.
Do they have the financial means to buy them out?
That's right.
And then if everybody agrees and the buyout happens, everybody understands, okay, you're getting bought out, so you no longer have, the house is no longer yours,
Yep.
you're not an owner, and you don't have any right to go there on vacation. You can't just roll up on and be like, hey, I'm here, right?
July 4th weekend. What do you mean? I was here. I've been here every year for 15 years.
So that changes that, and that needs to be clearly articulated, right?
Yep.
But then, if that's the case, and everybody agrees to it, then that's the easiest solution, right? That's the easiest solution if not everybody wants to keep it, not everybody's all in on it, right?
That's right.
And most of the time, that's the case, right? That's where you're going to run into that. You have the person on the West Coast. You're like, look. Why do I want this? Why do I want this extra money? I never go there. I don't use it. I understand that Billy lives there.
Yep.
I just can't be part of it, so I need to get out, right?
Yep.
And if
Billy can't afford to buy you out, usually the case.
So that's the thing. So if Billy can't afford to buy everybody out, or if two people can't afford to buy it out, then there's only one more answer.
Yep.
And the answer is for sale.
Yep.
You sell it.
That's right.
You
That's
sell it, and that's it. And we see this in our practice. We've seen this where it's like a vacation home, and one or two of them really love it. Like it's, oh my God, we go here all the time. We love the Cape House. We love it. We love it. But at the end of the day, it's like the people that don't live there, they don't use it.
That's right.
And you know what? They really could use the money, right? Or maybe they couldn't. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But right now, I can't. There's no justification for me subsidizing your vacation.
And that's what it turns into. And this is what people forget. It would be turning into, I'm subsidizing your summer house.
Yeah.
And for all the obvious reasons, I don't want to do that, right? And I know that you would love to go there, but unfortunately, our paths have brought us where they have brought us, and you can't afford to own it on your own. And I'm not just staying in to stay in. I'd rather use the money, pay for my kids' college. I don't go to the beach house. It's not my thing, and I'm not hanging in for it. And everybody's going to be mad, or somebody's going to be mad.
Someone's going to be really mad.
And you can't be mad. This is why you have to have this conversation way in the past to avoid these problems in the future. Because here's what's going to happen. If you can't all come to an agreement, right? Billy says, I'm not leaving. Your other sister says, I'm not selling to you because I want to use it, and I can put up with Billy because we're now factions are forming, right? These two are against the other two. If there's four, where you will find yourself, the state has a solution. You will find yourself in land court.
Yeah.
Okay?
Have fun.
You will be filing what's called a petition to partition. You will go to the land court and you will say to the land court, Your Honor, we're stuck owning this property. We cannot come to an agreement, and we want you to step in, take over, and just sell this thing, right? And then here's what happens. And nobody ever wants to hear this part, but what happens is usually you got to get a lawyer involved, right?
And here we go again.
We tell people all the time, more lawyers always make things better, right?
Always.
And then
Can't have too many.
And then the judge, if they take this thing on and say that's fine, the judge is going to assign a trustee to oversee this process.
Yeah, pay that guy.
Trustees don't work for free. Then the trustee is going to hire a broker, right? Any deal you think you might have been able to work out with your broker, 4%, 3%, whatever it looks like, that's off the table. The broker's like, look, this is a hand-to-hand combat situation. My commission for the sale of this thing is X, right? And this is just, and everybody, by the way, is billing. Lawyer's picking up the phone to deal with somebody. You want to fight about it? No problem. Keep talking.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put the phone down here in the desk.
I'm listening to you.
I'm listening.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going. Could you repeat that?
Yeah.
Could you repeat that? I'm not sure I get all of it. Tell me again, right?
You're on speakerphone. I can get it,
Everybody's going to get involved. Everybody's going to dive in. It's going to be a mess. And any money that you thought, oh my God, we're going to put some money away when we get, it's a good chunk of that is going to go towards that process of just having to deal with this. And by the way, it's going to leave a mark, right?
Yeah.
There's no more Thanksgivings. There's no more 4th of Julys. No one's getting together. It's just not happening, right? So our messaging to people is avoid all this. You can do it by using a trust that sort of lays out all the options for you. If you put all the kids on the deed, which is called a deed with the life estate, what that means is they are all going to get stuck owning the property together when you pass away. That could work if you've worked out some of these issues. It could not work depending on the players and depending on who's involved.
Yeah.
And then the third option might be some type of irrevocable trust. We're trying to do some Medicaid planning. We're trying to keep this off the plate for nursing home issues and things like that. But then it's always the same issue. After you're gone, does the house transition in a way, and think about this while you're alive, right? Do I want to create that type of angst in my family when I'm not around? I think about my daughters, and I say to myself, if I'm not around after a substantial mourning period, right? I'm sure.
I mean,
who knows how long?
You can't put a number
on
that.
Who knows how long,
can't,
right?
yeah.
But at some point, my hope is that they sit down and they figure it out and they kind of go their way, and we'll have this conversation when the time comes, and when I feel like it's the time to have it, when they've reached that level where
start to have that pain
where they can have it. Your kid's going to be mature enough to have this, right? So to have that conversation, to say, guys, I don't want you to fight. I don't want you to fight. Be honest with me, right? One of my daughters is going to say, I don't like the cape. It's not my thing. Okay, great. You don't want the cape. I love the cape. Great, then let's figure it out. Maybe there's some estate distribution issues in there. Maybe some people get money. Maybe some people get real estate. Maybe you handle IRA distributions differently from a percentage perspective. Maybe some kids get more.
And who knows? And that could be like at early. That could all be different when it actually happens,
Correct.
right? So the idea of it really, the question is, and we're kind of up against the clock, and there's one more thing, but the idea is like, look, just okay. In theory, does everybody want to keep the house, right?
Yep.
Does everybody want to keep the house? So in your case, everybody keep the house. And you're
Start
like,
there.
Yep. Okay. And if the answer is yes, then say, okay, here are the ways these things can play out. We don't have to decide this now because it's the 5th of July. Like, we're having fun. We have a barbecue. We got a beach pass for tonight. We're good to go. But just understand that this is where we're gonna be at someday, right? So that's fine, but as long as kind of it's articulated to everybody that this is the way it could potentially work out, and so everybody knows it and everybody understands. We don't have to put anything in writing.
Well,
right
the
now.
answer is going to be yes, no, maybe. There's only three answers.
Yeah.
Does everyone want to keep the house?
Yes, no, or I don't know.
No, maybe. And everyone's going to have a different answer. And then there's going to be some discussion around if this is the outcome that you desire, this is what that outcome looks like.
Yeah.
It involves some financial commitments. It involves some financial sacrifice. It involves some time sacrifice. Are you into that?
Yeah.
And some people, and there's a reason people rent, right? I don't want the headache of home ownership.
Yeah.
I like renting. I write a check. I'm all done. This is the same conversation.
Or like or they may be like, yep, we're in.
Yep.
We're in. And right now it feels good. We're all in. And you know what? Things may be different down the road. Financially, people may be different. Okay, so that's great. So I understand that we're in. Now, the one thing I want to bring up, because we see this, is kind of that generation, the one that's kind of grown up in this place, like for me and my siblings, we've kind of grown up there. That generation, it's like, yep, everybody, we're in it. The next generation, what I will tell 99 out of 100 clients is you sell it.
Yep.
You don't have, because we've seen this, right, where you have kind of grandchildren and cousins of like all over the place, and now you have like 11 different people owning like this really nice property. It's never, ever going to work.
It's a train wreck. I agree with you. It's kind of a one-level thing, right?
Yep,
At some point, you're going to clear the air. Somebody has to end up with this thing. Ultimately, I agree with you. You start mixing in grandkids and cousins and great-grandkids, it's a train wreck.
And then it's as if we're all strangers.
Yep.
And if someone just sold their company, in Silicon Valley and they can buy it,
take it.
It's yours.
I
right?
agree with you. Great point.
It's yours.
Great
All right.
point.
We got to wrap it up. All right, Jay, as we said earlier, Jay and I carpooled today. We had
Very
coffee.
exciting.
Tom, no coffee. He's clean. He's just clean
Discipline.
living, right?
So disciplined.
His discipline, right? His discipline. He's here first.
It shames us.
He leaves.
It shames us.
It is.
It does.
All right. We'll see everybody next time on Monday in the Law. I hope everybody continues to have a great summer. Be safe. Don't do anything stupid. And always
moneyinthelaw.net. Send us your questions.
all
To be
your
answered
questions
on the air.
Continue to have a great summer. We'll see everybody next time.
Rock on.